Well, good evening, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name's Charlie Bluehawk. Last night we talked about spirals in the HAARP sky, and how, really for the very first time in I don't know how many years, I was actually scared. I was actually scared down to my bones by what the Moron Masters appear to be doing, what they might be doing with their HAARP weapon. I mean, firing energy weapons at the Earth to cause earthquakes, that at least I can understand. You know, why anybody would do it, that's something else. Using torsion physics and hyperdimensional physics to explore other dimensions. Okay, all right, I could probably understand that. They're looking for more tools of horror to use against us and anybody else they can come across. Again, that's at least understandable at a certain level, I suppose. Using their HAARP weapon to control our minds, our emotions, to basically rob us of our souls. Okay, again, okay, I can sort of somehow comprehend that. Why anybody would want to do that, haven't got a clue. But to fire their HAARP weapon into space and causing that spiral effect you see in the northern hemispheres over Russia, over Norway, that I cannot understand, or more correctly, I actually don't want to understand. Because the reasons they would have for firing their HAARP weapon into space and spending quite a lot of money, our money, but it's still money, expending tremendous amount of energy and firing their weapon into space, I mean, the reasons are really scary. Are they trying to blow up the dead brown dwarf star? Are they firing at incoming armies of flying saucers? I mean, how many enemies do they have? Are they trying to open a doorway to another dimension, another reality for the Earth to pass through and out of this galaxy into some other one? Or, since they've broken their covenant with their own god, their Satan, they believe she's real, and they've screwed up. So are they taking pot shots, as it were, at their own god? I mean, they were actually going to, part of their plan, if you can call it that, was to set the world on fire and sacrifice all life on it, you, me, the plants, the animals, the chinchillas. And this huge ritual sacrifice of 7 billion people would summon their god, Satan, back to Earth. She'd sit on the throne of Earth. They'd worship her, whatever you do with God. And then they had cloned an army of psychic super soldiers to apparently attack their god. Okay. They built these mega cities all over the Earth, these empty cities that are modern and brand new and beautiful and empty, to give Satan's servants, her demon warriors, I suppose, because apparently Satan travels with an entourage. They were giving these demons, these spirits, a physical home in which to inhabit until they got them physical bodies. And each of these beautiful megacities is actually a demon trap. If you know the right frequency, you can actually hold and trap a demon, a spirit. And then they were going to use their HAARP weapon to throw down their own god, trap their own god on Earth, and then raise themselves up and take Satan's place. No, I'm not kidding. This is actually their plan. And it always gets back to the same thing. We can't talk to these people. We can't reason with somebody who thinks that this is all possible, that this is all real. Whether it is or not really doesn't matter. So the idea of them firing their HAARP weapon into space just frankly scares the heck out of me. The other thing you have to remember and have to understand is inside of our ancestral tree, you and me, anybody walking down the street, there's part of our ancestral tree that's alien. And there's no way we can ignore that. The proof that there is something beyond us is in our very genes. What you want to do is you want to go online and do a keyword search for junk genes, Genes, because there's an entire group of genes in our bodies, in our DNA, that scientists cannot explain what it's doing there. It shouldn't be there, but it is. I think it's like 27 chromosomes or something. But see, part of what should not be there is how you and I grew in our mother's wombs, or in my case, a human incubator. Because at one point in our development as a fetus, as a human fetus, we go through a stage of development which is completely reptile. We are, at a certain point of our gestation inside of the woman's womb, we're reptiles. Now, please don't take my word for this. Go to the local library, talk to your favorite reference librarian about it. Ask them to help you look that up. Stages of development in the human fetus. Part of that development is a phase of reptilian. Well, that will either sober you up or you'll start drinking. And so tonight, I thought we might chat about water and electricity equals life, and how very easy it is for you at home to prove that life exists everywhere in the universe. And you don't even have to leave the planet to prove it. All you really need is a battery. Those little 9-volt square ones are pretty handy. Some 2-strand electrical wire, the wire you use at your house to hook up a light bulb. You want a glass bottle of distilled water, a stainless steel frying pan, some grass clippings from your front lawn, and an eyedropper, again, very clean, very sterile, and pick up a cheap microscope. Now, you can buy some distilled water in a glass bottle. Make sure it's glass, because plastic bottles actually leach chemicals into the water that they're holding, and they pass molecules out of the plastic into the water, contaminating it. The Japanese actually proved this a few years ago, that the cheap plastic that's used in water bottles, those molecules in that plastic actually make you fat. Isn't that entertaining? Anyway, get your glass bottle full of distilled water, leave the cap on for a moment, just set it to one side. Go out, get some grass clippings off your lawn, the local park, wherever, and wash them clean. Try to get as much of the chemical residue as you can off of them, and put them in a nice stainless steel frying pan on your stove top, and then heat those grass clippings. What you want to do is you want to reduce them to ash. You want to reduce them to charcoal. You want to make sure that there's no life in them at all of any kind, just burnt ash. Okay, set that aside, let it cool down to room temperature. Now, take your 2-strand electrical wire and strip the ends off each. So now you've got 2 bare wires at each end, an inch or so. Make sure it's copper, make sure it's exposed. Try not to use aluminum wire, it sort of screws everything up. Now, once your grass clippings are cooled down to room temperature, get your little 9-volt square battery and take one end of the electrical wire and take those 2 ends and wrap them around each of the terminals on the battery. Make sure they don't touch. So now you've got 2 exposed ends attached to each terminal of your battery, and you've got the other 2 ends just lying, not doing much of anything. Again, make sure they don't touch each other. Now go ahead, open your bottle of distilled water. Using your eyedropper, which you've cleaned and sterilized, with heat, please, not alcohol. Alcohol doesn't sterilize anything. All alcohol does, when you rub it on your arm to sterilize it, all alcohol does is to dry out any viruses or bacteria or fungus where the alcohol touches. And the moment you add moisture again, you sweat, those bacteria, those fungus are alive again. So when you sterilize something, use either colloidal silver, which is silver molecules in a distilled water solution, or heat. So anyway, try to be as clean as you can. So take your eyedropper, take a few drops of water out of the bottle of distilled water, and put it under the microscope and take a look. And just look. It's this is not rocket science or anything. Trust me, I was 5 years at NASA. Nothing is rocket science. Put a couple of drops of water on a slide, put the slide in the microscope, and just look. You don't have to be a scientist. Is anything moving in there? Nothing? Good. It's clean. There's no life in there at all. That's what you want. So, you verify there's nothing living in your bottle of distilled water. Now what I want you to do, take a few bits of the grass clippings that you've reduced to ash. Just sprinkle a few of those into the bottle. Again, wash your hands, try to keep everything as sterile as you can. Now, put the cap back on the bottle, shake it. You want to combine the ash inside of the distilled water as best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about it. Now, put the bottle back down, take off the cap. The two ends that are exposed on your electrical wire, stick that down into the water. Make sure that you keep the ends of the wire far apart as you can. What you want to do is you want to pass electrical current from one strand of wire to the other through the water. Now, leave that for a few minutes. No big hurry. The battery will probably get warm. Don't worry about that. So now, what have you got? You have a sterile environment, your bottle of distilled water in a glass bottle. You've added carbon, the grass clippings. Now carbon, everything that we know of, except for viruses, on our world, in our dimension, is made out of carbon. Plants are made out of carbon. You're made out of carbon. I'm made out of carbon. Trees are made out of carbon. Your chinchilla, for example, is made out of carbon. They call them hamsters in Russia. I just discovered that this morning. Interesting fact. Useless, but interesting. So, you've got a sterile environment, your bottle of distilled water. You've added carbon, the basic building block of life. Now you've added electricity, which is the power of the universe. The universe is electrical. It's not complicated. It's not hard. You're electrical. I'm electrical. The planet's electrical. The universe is electrical. Now what? Well, you wait a few minutes. You carefully pull the two exposed wires out of the bottle of water. Make sure they don't touch. And then take the other end of the wire and pull it off the battery. Put the cap back on the bottle. Put the bottle in a dark cabinet for, say, 24 hours. Leave it alone. Now, come back 24 hours later. Get out your microscope, that nice cheap one you bought at the local scientific supply house, the one that supplies your local high school with the scientific-y stuff. Now, if you don't have a local supplier of scientific-y stuff, go online and look up Edmund Scientific. They've been around for decades. I used to buy from them when I was a kid, and they do mail order. Edmund Scientific, EDMUND Scientific. Good products, good prices, reliable folks. So now it's 24 hours later. You take out your glass bottle, you open the lid, you take out your eyedropper, and you put a few drops of water on top of that slide that came with the microscope, and you put it under the microscope and you take a look. What do you see? You will see how life began on this world and every other world in the cosmos billions of years ago. You will see life starting again every single day. On this planet, on every planet in the universe. Because wherever there's water and carbon and electricity, there's life. Because in that slide you're looking at, you're going to see things moving. Little single-celled organisms have, pretty much overnight, sprung into existence out of nothing. Water, carbon, electricity. This is normal. This is natural. Life is so easy to create. Life is everywhere. And it's being recreated every single day. So next time you're out in the rain and there's lightning and you see a puddle, you're looking at new life forming. Literally out of the static electricity that's mixing in the air around you and is combining with the water and little bits of plant stuff that just happen to be blowing by. And those single cells that sprung to life out of nowhere inside of your glass bottle, give them a few thousand years and you'll see them walking around. The only difference between you and me and a puddle of water, a little electric current, which now you and I generate naturally. All living things generate electrical current. And a few pounds of chemicals, most of which is carbon. You and me were about 97% water. And we're about 3% chemicals. Again, mostly carbon. God? Well, I'm absolutely certain she's out there somewhere. Because you and I, we create God with every thought. We are cells in God's body. So she must exist because we do. Never met her personally. She's a little bigger than I am. But why anybody would want to go to war against God? Well, again, that's what separates you from our masters. They hate everything. Hate's tremendously powerful. I know from personal experience. So anyway, for all of us here at the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk. And I'm wishing you a really good day, and please keep that one good thought. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel fighting his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race. Their black magic captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.